Hello and welcome to Grade 4, Unit 4 Math Overview. This unit is talking about equations and word problems. Please have this note sheet available to work on throughout the video and have a notebook for any additional notes that might be given. Here we go. The first part we're going to talk about is a variable. A variable is a letter or symbol that represents a different number. We now can have two or more variables in an equation. Let's take a look at an example of how this might happen. If Natasha made 6 times the quarts of soup as Manuel made, let the amount of soup Natasha made be n, so that's one of our knowns. Let the number that Manuel made be m, and our change amount was 6, and it used the word times, so we know we're going to work with multiplication or division type problems. So now it says write an equation to compare Natasha and Manuel. We want to write an equation as if we don't know how much Natasha or Manuel has made. So we first have to figure out who made more, Natasha or Manuel. It says Natasha made 6 times the quarts of soup as Manuel made. So Natasha made our most amount. She's considered our total. Manuel made the smaller amount, so he's a part. And our 6 is the change amount, so that is a part. So we can put together a multiplication equation, and we can put together a division equation. If we wanted to start with a multiplication equation, we're going to start with our 2 parts. We have a number and we have a variable. When we're writing a number and a variable together as multiplication, we write number first and then we write letter, and we do not put any math symbol between them. No X, no dot, no star. Number next to letter means to multiply. So those two are multiplying together and they're going to equal Natasha. We can also write this as a division problem, and we would start with Natasha divided by 6 equals Manuel, because Manuel is 6 times smaller than Natasha. Now this is helpful if we're trying to put together maybe an input-output table where we have Manuel and we have Natasha. If we have 1 quart of soup for Manuel, we could put the 1 into this top equation here, and it would be 6 times 1, and Natasha would have 6 quarts. If Natasha has 24 quarts, we can find out how much Manuel has by using the second equation. 24 divided by 6, and Manuel would have 4 quarts. Because we don't know how much they currently have, and their amount could change based on each time they make it, but the change amount isn't changing, the rule, we can write an equation using 2 different variables. Moving on to our next concept, we're going to talk about order of operations. A lot of times you'll hear this called PEMDAS. Now, PEMDAS just stands for some of the letters that represent the portions of the equation we're working on. Step 1 is always to solve parentheses first. And no matter what falls in the parentheses. If you have more than one parenthesis, you just go from left to right. Step 2 is exponents. That's when we have this little number in the sky. That's called an exponent. We really don't do much with exponents in 4th grade. We'll get into them more later. Step 3 is multiplication and division. This is why some people don't like the words PEMDAS, because we might actually do division first, then multiplication. We are solving these from left to right. So whichever one shows up first. So if division shows up first, we're going to start with that. If multiplication shows up first, we're going to start with that. And addition and subtraction are at the same time also. And then we go from left to right. So it could be addition, subtraction, or it could be subtraction, addition. And we're going to complete those from left to right. So this is why PEMDAS is sometimes not used to explain order of operations, but instead we have these different levels of completing the problem. So if we look at the very top one, we have some variables. Now, we do not know what C is, so we can only combine like terms. If we have 8 C's and we add a C to it, we're going to have 9 C's. And we add another C to it, we're going to end up with 10 C's. That's as simple as we can get that answer, because we do not know what C actually is representing, but we can combine things together if they are alike. The next one tells us what B already is, so we can replace it. So I'm going to put the 11 there, and now we're going to follow our order of operations. So we do parentheses first. 11 plus 9 is 20. We do our other parentheses next. 7 minus 2 is 5. We bring the symbol down between them because we haven't used that yet. And now we get 20 divided by 5, which is 4. So our overall answer when we start combining all of our different terms is 4. The next one is showing what could be seen when we do input-output tables. X represents the input, Y represents the output. So we can use those two variables when we make an equation. In this case, they told us what X is. They said X is 2. Now remember, when we have a number next to a letter, that means we are multiplying. So I'm going to rewrite our equation to say 4 times 2 plus 2, because we put that times 2 in instead of the X. Now we follow order of operations. We do the 4 times 2 first, which is 8. We carry the plus 2 along, and we do 8 plus 2, which is 10. So in this case, Y is going to be 10. Moving on to properties in mathematics. We have talked about these properties before, but we need to review them, and these are something that are important. They keep coming back around and around again, so make sure that you are studying them, practicing them, and memorizing them. The first one is the commutative property. The commutative property is like communicating. I talk, you talk. Then you talk, and I talk. And we go back and forth on who talks first and who listens. And we can change the order, and it does not change the outcome. So in this case, I had 9 times 3 got me to 27. Or I can change the order around and do 3 times 9, which still is 27. In another example, 5 times 4 is 20, or 4 times 5 is 20. We can do the commutative property for addition and multiplication. We cannot do it for subtraction or division. The next one is associative property. The associative property is working on grouping numbers. And a lot of times when we want to group numbers together, it's to make things like quick tens. Like the 4 and the 6 is a wise choice to group together. But we could change the order and do the 2 plus 4 first and then the 6. Grouping them together does not change the answer. If we do the 3 times 5 first, we get 15. 2 times 15 is 30. Or we can do the 2 times 3 first and get 6. 6 times 5 is 30. So the answer doesn't change when we regroup. When we're regrouping, we're usually moving parentheses. And the last one is distributive property. This one is passing out property. We are going to pass out. Now we have this 2 next to a parenthesis. When number is next to a variable or a symbol, it means we're multiplying. So we can pass the 2 times to the 9 and the 2 times to the 5. So 2 times 9 is 18. 2 times 5 is 10. and then there was an addition symbol between them, so we add them together and we get 28. If you don't know these properties, these are good ones to get written down and to memorize. Making some flashcards is not a bad option. Our next topic is creating equations. Looking at a math mountain, we can create 8 different equations. In order to create our 8 different equations, we typically are going to see equations that probably look like this. This is where we're used to, where we start with the equation and it equals the answer. The opposite of it is when we start with the answer and then write the equation. Let's take a look at a multiplication and division problem. So our 3 knowns is 63, 9, and 7. Our 2 parts is 7 and 9, so we can do 7 times 9 equals 63. That is one equation where we started with the equation and we went to the answer. On the other side, we can start with the answer that we just had and then rewrite the equation we wrote. So our answer said 63, so we're going to start with that. And it's going to equal, our equation said 7 times 9. So we're going to keep it in the same order, 7 times 9. So now we went answer, equation. We can use the commutative property by changing the order of what we multiply to get our answer. And then again, we start with our answer. And then the equation we just wrote, which was 9 times 7. Now we can come up with 2 division equations that turn into 4. We start with the 63. We divide by one of our parts, 7, and we equal the other part of 9. On the other side, we start with the answer of 9. And we keep the equation written the same way, 63 divided by 7. And our last one would be 63 divided by 9 equals 7. And then we would have 7 equals 63 divided by 9. So we just made 8 equations using 3 math facts. Multiples and factors are going to show up in this unit. You need to know which one is which. Factors are the parts of a multiplication equation or the smaller pieces in a division problem. And then the multiple is the answer of a multiplication problem, or when we start going bigger, our count bys, we also can call them. So if we want to find all the factors of 14, I'm going to start with 1 and go all the way to 14, because 1 times 14 is 14. And then I'm working my way into the middle. 2 times what is 14? 7. So those two kind of paired together. 3 times nothing gets me to 14, so that's not going to be a factor pair. 4 times nothing, 5 times nothing, 6 times nothing, and then we're already back to the 7 that I have written down. So my factors that I have for 14 are 1, 2, 7, and 14. If we're listing the first 4 multiples of 8, we would be listing our count bys. The first count by 8 is 8. Our next one is 16. Our next one is 24. And our fourth one is 32. Notice if it says list the first 4, we want to list the very first number because 1 times 8 is 8. 2 times 8 is 16. 3 times 8 is 24, and 4 times 8 is 32, so that is the first 4 terms of the multiples. Prime numbers and composites is the next skill. I like to think of these as the vowels and consonants of numbers. In letters, we have way more consonants than we do vowels. That's kind of the same case with our 2 types of numbers. We have composite numbers, and there are way more composite numbers. And then we have prime numbers. A prime number only has factors of 1 and itself. So all the green ones on this chart are the prime numbers for the first 100 numbers. 2. The only factors for 2 is 1 times 2. 3 is 1 times 3. 4 is not a prime number because I have 2 times 2 as a factor. So we call 4 a composite number. Any number that has more than 1 times itself is called a composite. So as you can see by this chart, all the white numbers are composite. All the green numbers are prime. 1, though, is kind of an oddball. It's on its own. It doesn't really fall into either category. So we don't list it on either one. Patterns in numbers and shapes are important in this unit also. You might see them listed where we have to then find the pattern, or sometimes they even give you the rule. So we have 39 minus 6 is 33, minus 6 is 17, minus 6 is 11, minus 6 is 5, minus 6. We could keep going, but we're going to end up into negative numbers. So we can continue a pattern by using the same rule. The same thing goes for input-output tables. If I started with 8 and I end at 19, my rule is going to be to add 11. If I go from 12 to 23, that rule should still apply, and it does. 15 to 26 is add 11. So our rule is adding 11 to that. The next one is geometric patterns. This is when we are given shapes that show some type of pattern. We have a dark square on end, a dark regular square, a dark square on end, a light square on end, a light square. What comes next? It would be a dark square on end, and then a dark square, and then a dark square on end. And we could keep growing, making that pattern in a repetitive nature. The bottom one is a growing pattern. This one is where we start with an amount and we grow on to our pattern, and it keeps growing in the same amount. So it's our job to use critical thinking skills to say, what just happened? How did it go from one step to the next? And then what would actually come next if I follow that same pattern? All right, it is time for you to try some of the problems on your own. This is a good time to pause the video and try it on your own. Resume when you are ready to check your answers. All right, welcome back. Let's check our answers. There are 2 times as many students in drama as compared to science club. We're going to write a multiplication and division equation. So science is a part, drama is the total because there's more kids in drama than there are in science. And 2 is our change amount, so that is a part. So our multiplication is going to be the S and the 2. So we write number first next to letters. So 2S equals D. Our division equation is going to start with the total, D, and then divide by 2 to equal the S. And those are our 2 equations using 2 variables. The next one, writing our 8 equations. You might want to pause the video and just check to see if you got equations first and then answer. And then on the flip side, got answers and then equations. The next one is a multi-step word problem, which shows up a lot in this unit because we're working on order of operations. Jack is saving $247 to buy a surfboard. He saved $8 each week for 5 weeks. He wants to buy a surfboard in 9 more weeks. How much does Jack need to save each week? So we first needed to do the 8 times 5 to get 40, but we had to subtract that away from the 247, so that had to be written first, minus the 40, and we get an answer of 207. We divide that by 9 to equal M, and then we find out that M is $23 per week needed. 55 is a composite number. It is a composite number because it has the factors of 1 and 55, and it has the factors of 5 and 11. So because it has other factors besides 1 in itself, it is composite. And number 5, if we have the rule of y equals 7x plus 5, if we know that x is 0, we can replace it into our equation. Number next to letter means to multiply. So 7 times 0 is 0, plus 5 is 5. The next one, 7 times 1 is 7, plus 5 is 12. The next one, 7 times 2 is 14, plus 5 is 19. And our last one, 7 times 3 is 21, plus 5 is 26. Rewatch this video if you need any more additional help for this unit. Otherwise, feel free to get on Math Expressions, Think Central, and do the lesson checks in the Activity Center, or going into the Skills Plan on IXL, Grade 4, Unit 4. Good luck!